right, ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here. He said, unmute yourself. Yeah, man, let's go. That will work. So, ETM Hotel Rennie, Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Mossi Warrior Clan channel or my Facebook page because we're on both. I asked the question and Raz has responded to it in the chat. And he basically said what he said as far as his answer, which is Yoruba originated from Ile-Ife from King Odu. And we're going to get into that necessarily. I was actually sharing the show, so I wasn't speaking, Raz. But people on the Facebook side, that is what's going on YouTube. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for supporting the Kofi Pi research team. Our 2 books, Spears of the Mossi Volume 1 and From Spears to Pen Volume 2. My book, my children's book, One Night Before Bed, and Kofi's book, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland. Also, the conscious community first Pan-African journal, Killmonger's Corner. Brother Black Panther put that together. Look for part 2 coming soon. And also volume 3, Spiritual Combat from the Mossi, from Kofi Pi research team. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to get into this bill. I don't want to try to hold people too long. Again, I hope that everybody can learn from what we have going on as far as all the things that we're involved in with the Kofi Pi research team and the Mossi warrior clan, because we're coming. Also, Spears of the Mossi Volume 2, from Spears to Pen, Volume 2 is in the Gambia. It arrived today. Our brothers and sisters at the Wright Library has their books at the Gay and Jaro Skills Academy. We got a scholarship program over there for kids, funding their education for them to go to school. It's not, that's something that we do from the bottom of our heart to help advance people in their endeavors. So we're going to continue to do that. Again, like this show, share this show, tell a friend, tell a friend. I see we got a little bit of an audience, so I'm gonna try to get directly into what's going on. I know Sutek is already sharing the show, so that's how things rock out on that end. If you're on Facebook, feel free to share the link as well to people who are really interested in the Yoruba traditions and history, and also the culture. We have a lot of brothers and sisters who cling to the Yoruba traditions, or they may even coincide and go into a different lane and deal with, I don't even, never mind, I ain't going to introduce all that, but y'all already know what's going on with that. Let's say he says, go all in, brother. I'm partially Yoruba Hassa. Just took my African ancestry, just waiting for my results to find out if I'm truly Yoruba, like my family been saying. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, that's what's up right there, man. Most of the people that were actually a part of the enslavement that arrived here, they say they have a lot of, a lot of them have high percentage of Nigerian DNA. And then it goes, all the way up the coastlines. The Ijao and all that was a part, in Calabar Kingdom. They were all a part of brokering in the late periods where there was illegal slave trade that even got more of the Nigerians over here and so on and so forth. But it's interesting to know that story. Without further ado, the first thing I'm gonna do, man, because I have 7 different sources that I actually want to get into today. And let me go ahead and share my screen and we can get into the bill. And let's try to have some fun, make this a learning experience for everybody. And then I'm gonna get out of y'all hair for everyone tuned in. All right, so here we go. The Origins of Yoruba People by yours truly. This presentation or conversation is sponsored by Wings and Fries. It's if you ever in Nashville, Tennessee, feel free to stop by Wings and Fries on Jefferson Street and grab you some wings, some fries, some fish, okra. They got plenty of sides. They got hamburgers, French fries, of course. They loaded up over there. Spaghetti. Yeah, man, they going all the way in. So support Wings and Fries on Jefferson Street. And they also have some of the best banana pudding you'll ever taste in your life, created by Sister Ann. It's my homie all the way. Angela, she put it in on it. But you'll see that Granny's banana pudding. You'll see that in there. Get you some of that, and get you some of that Kool-Aid. I say it's Kool-Aid like that because of my friend. You know what I'm saying? He actually made the Kool-Aid, but he got some Kool-Aid in there that's busting, and it's a little heavy on the sugar, just like people like it in the hood. So yeah, this right here is brought to you by Wings and Fries. So shout out to them. So here's our outline, and pretty much what we're going to be talking about throughout this conversation is who are the Yoruba, the oral history of the Yoruba, the historical perspective of the Yoruba, and the conclusion. You have many of my brothers that actually want to go against some of the oral traditions and say that these people don't come from there, or these people that were there didn't migrate to there. So there's some scholastic misinterpretations of the actual origins of the Yoruba people, and we're going to set out and see what scholars say who are not only on the continent but also in the field that actually did a lot of groundbreaking research. So I'm not going to decide for you. So in my conclusion, I'm not going to give you my conclusion. I'm going to just lay the evidence out there, and I'm gonna let you decide for yourself. And then I'm gonna give you a perspective, because this will be to be continued dialogue, discussion, presentation, or maybe even lead into a book regarding the Yoruba. So brother Black Panther, I know you probably are busy. welcome home. You stateside. Um, I know you probably are foaming at the mouth trying to get into this. Possibly, if you're hearing this, because this right up your alley. These, you're entrenched in the traditions and the culture. So uh, I know I had your blessings to actually go forward with this. So let's go ahead. So again, who are we talking about today? We're talking about the Yoruba. When we get into the Yoruba, you're talking about Nigeria. You're talking about this area, this engulfed with a multitude of cultures. As you can see, Ross in the chat, he said, pretty much Hausa and Yoruba. He's claiming the ties of those two, but you do have other tribes there. It's a multitude of different languages and so on and so forth. I don't know how much you know about Nigeria or even Yoruba per se, but this is one of the most engulfed and rich places on the continent of Africa. So I'm gonna start from a political perspective with our history of West Africa to the 19th century by Basil Davidson. He says, and this is his perspective, the political development west of the lower Niger took other forms. Here was the home of the Yoruba people, who appear to have founded a number of small states under political chiefs as much as 900 years ago. The Yoruba have several traditions about how their people began life. One of them says that it was Ile-Ife, which the Yoruba regarded as the cradle of their nation, that mankind was first created. Another tradition tells the story of a great ancestor and hero called Oduduwa. He is said to have come from afar in the east and settled at Ile-Ife, and it was from here that his descendants went out to rule various branches of the Yoruba. One of his sons, for example, is said to have become the first Alafin of Oya, as well as being the father of the first Oba of Benin, while another was the first Onisebi or of Sebi. His eldest daughter is remembered as mother of the first Elekitu of Kitu in modern Dahomey, while another daughter gave birth to the first Alawu of Owu. What historical truth lies behind these legends and beliefs? They point, like other legends of the same kind, to the early arrival of newcomers who settled in Yoruba land and merged in the more numerous people whom they found there. These people who were already living in Yoruba land had certainly been there since distant Stone Age times. Now, archaeological evidence suggests that they were pioneering metalwork and fine arts like terracotta, and that they were possibly related to the people of the Note culture. Experts in the language explain that Yoruba language, like other languages nearby, probably came into existence in remote times and possibly as much as 3,000 years before the present day. Peep this. Then who were the ancestors personified by Oduduwa in the traditions, who joined these people and built in Yoruba civilizations of historical times? Here again, modern experts in the study of language have something useful to say. They think that there were two main movements of incoming ancestors, one toward Ikitu. If you can see on the map, Ikitu is above Owu on the right-hand side by the Niger River. It's closer to the Niger River. That's why I had a map here. And then Ife, which is to the left. And then Ejibu, which you go down to the south, closer to the Atlantic, inside the forest belt, and another one toward Oya. You should see Oya over on here somewhere too, or it might be up, to the north, on the northern edge of the forest. The earliest of these migrations may have occurred in about 1000 AD. Where did these incoming ancestors come from? Some Yoruba legends say that they came from Arabia, and quite a few Yoruba customs seem to reflect the ideas of ancient peoples who lived along the Middle Nile, notably the people of the ancient empire of Kush. No doubt the truth about where the incoming ancestors came from, however, it is that they came from the Western Sudan, where they, like other people of Chad region, had felt the influence of those old Nile civilizations which had sent traders and travelers across Africa in ancient times. Entering Yoruba land, they brought new political ideas and methods with them. They introduced or evolved new types of government. We may see the legendary reflection of this in the story of how Oduduwa produced children who ruled the various branches of Yoruba in new ways. I'm going to go a little further. Yoruba land, in any case, embarked on a new age of development at a time that there was not long after, and may even have been a little before AD 1000 AD. This was a period, one may note, of great change in many parts of West Africa. Then it was that of the states of Hassa, Ras, first took shape, and that the state of Kanem underwent a big expansion. In Yoruba land, a number of town settlements were founded in the forests to the west of Niger. Each possessed its own network of family and clan loyalties and duties, its recognized elders, its appointed chiefs, and supreme chief. They varied in size and power according to the skill of their rulers and the wealth of the countryside in which they were founded, but all of them regarded Ile-Ife as their traditional home. So Basil is under the impression that the Yoruba comes from, like many have said, or Rasa said in the chat, Ile-Ife, but he also brought up, some say, Arabia. And then he also said along the Nile, referring more so not to the Remech, but to the Kushites. William Bascom writes, there's been much speculation about the origins of Yoruba people, heightened by the discovery of the now famous Ife brass castings and terracottas, and more recently by Nigerian independence. The technically perfect and extremely lifelike and sensitive cast brass heads from Ife, some life size, were so different from all other traditional African art that they were bound to raise questions about the origin and about that of the ancestors of Yoruba. Peep this. Now, I write about this person in volume 2 of From Spears to Pen, Leo Fabianus, who first reported these great works of art, held that Yoruba culture had been introduced by Etruscans who reached West Africa by the way of a lost continent of Atlantis. Sir Flinders Petrie noted the resemblance of these heads to pottery, ones from Memphis, suggested as Egyptian origin. This view has been followed by Talbot and other colonial officials and may be educated Yoruba. Archdeacon J. Ulamid Lucas attempted to prove that it derives from Egypt using unsound linguistic evidence. Dr. Seberu O. Bioboku saw the ancient kingdoms of Moro in the eastern Sudan as the source of the Yoruba. Earlier writers had noted similarities to Jewish customs, one identifying Yoruba as one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. Yoruba converts to Islam generally acclaim Mecca as their point of origin. Archaeology, which is still in infancy in Nigeria, has not yet provided the answers to the question. It is established that Ife was the center of important glass-making industry, which may have spread blue glass beads, sigi akuri, across West Africa. It was unearthed shrines, floors paved with potsherd, trimmed and set on the edge of straight rows, circles, and herringbone patterns. The discovery of full figures cast in brass in 1957, with the size of the head exaggerated in proportion of the body, disposes speculations that the Ife brass were work of errant European or Egyptian artists, or that they had been carried to Ife during the migration of the Yoruba from a distant point of the origin. Nor do serious scholars any longer hold that the art of the brass casting used the lost wax process was first introduced to Ife and Benin by Portuguese, as Sir Landis Petrie first observed. The facial features of these heads and figures resemble those of inhabitants of Ife today. Carved figures, stools, monoliths, and granite and quartz, which have been known for over half a century, are believed to date from the classical period of Ife, when the brasses and terracottas were produced. A town wall about 5.5 miles in circumference, which surrounded the city, probably dates the same period. A second town wall, a nearly 8 miles, were constructed during the period of the slave wars, probably in the second quarter of the 19th century. It is clear that Ife was an artistic and ritual center for great importance during the classical period, which is tentatively dated 950 to 1400 AD or earlier, As far as Yoruba origins are concerned, the most that archaeology has been able to contribute so far as to uncover some stylistic similarities between Ife terracottas and the Note terracottas from northern Nigeria, which are dated 900 BC, 200 AD. Iron and brass are present in these early Note finds. So that was Bascom. Bascom gave you an ideal perspective, but he also talked about Fabrionis talking about these people came from some Atlantis bullcrap. So you can see where some of the mythology actually creeps into the origin of these people from Eurocentric writers. But for bonus, is actually more so of a North African Arab turned Christian. So the next source states, I'm going with Ajayi, 1,000 years of West Africa. He states, let's see what the great Ajayi says. He says the Yoruba origins. The origin of the Yoruba, like the earliest history of other non-literate peoples, is still a bickering ground for the erudite. Now, he says, many speculations and scholarly theories abound, but not definite knowledge has yet emerged. The general trend of these theories, most of them based on Yoruba oral traditions, is that of possible origin from the East. Some scholars, impressed by similarities between Yoruba and ancient Egyptian culture, religious observances, works of art, burial, and other customs, speak of the possible migration of the ancestors of Yoruba from Upper Nile as early as 2000 or 1000 BC. As a result of some upheavals in ancient Egypt. But the same is often said of several other West African people like the Jukun and the Basawa in northern Nigeria and the Ga in modern Ghana. There is also the difficulty of deciding whether similarities between the cultures of two societies are evidence of large-scale migrations or of borrowing from common source. For these and other reasons, there is no longer the old tendency to accept the idea of Yoruba migration from Egypt without question. Whatever their precise origin, it is now generally agreed that Ile-Ife represents the earliest stage in the development of Yoruba culture. We do not know the exact date of this. Most probably, it took place toward the end of the first millennium, which is 1000 AD. From this original base, which according to oral traditions was founded by the mythical Oduduwa, the Yoruba extend their sway over the aboriginal inhabitants, about whom little is known, creating other settlements as they advance southwards. There is no doubt that in the first settlement, now revered as the cradle of the people, the Yoruba must have attained a high level of material culture. This can be seen in the quality of their stone, bronze, and iron works. Most remarkably are the terracottas, the artistic excellence of which is now widely acclaimed by experts. And he continues, another clearly recognizable stage in the early history of Yoruba was the emergence of Old Oyo State. I'm not going to go too far into the Old Oyo State, and I'll leave you with this. According to local traditions, this state was founded by, I always mess his name up, Oraminyan, Bana correct me, the son of Oduduwa, who came from Ife and who, according to Bini tradition, also founded a new dynasty at Benin. Thus, from the very beginning of the Oyo Benin dynasties were linked by a common ancestry. Now, rather, Oraminyan belongs to the realm of a real history of a legend. He represents the emergence of two dynasties and empires which were to dominate most of what is now southern Nigeria for more than 4,000 centuries. We see in the Oraminyan story an attempt to explain what is in all essentials an historical fact. He represents a new phase of Yoruba history in which effective political power and political supremacy passed from Ife to Old Oyo. Henceforth, the former became the spiritual headquarters and later the real hub of the new Yoruba Empire. Modern research has tentatively ascribed the beginning of this episode to somewhere between 1388 and 1481. All right. Peace to everybody. I see y'all in there, man. Shout out to y'all. Let's move on. So here we have went through 1, 2, 3 We're on the fourth source. I said 7. So let's get it in. I got another one somewhere around here. All right. Now, the present boundaries of Africa imposed by European powers at the end of the 19th century, and preserved today by the need of independent African states and political stability, have created barriers between peoples in pre-colonial times that very close contact with each other. Two such peoples are the Yoruba and the Ajayi of Dahomey in Nigeria. It is easy to see that there are Yoruba on both sides of the border. Two things, however, are not often realized, at least as clearly as they ought to be. The first is that the Yoruba are spread both to the east and the west of the Ajayi, and who seem to have been a later intrusion and to have cut the Yoruba settlement in two. The second is even people from here we call the Ajayi, which include the Igun or the Gan, the Fan, the Arada, and a number of other small groups in modern southern Dahomey, are very closely related to the Yoruba by language, beliefs, economy, political systems, and social usage. And as we shall see, large slices of both Yoruba and the Ajayi areas were at various periods under the same political authority in a real sense. Therefore, the Yoruba and the Ajayi can be regarded as belonging to a single cultural area. Let us take language first. A recent linguistic study of West African classifies the Yoruba, the Ajayi, the Iwu languages, as well as the Edo and Igbo as belonging to the same Kwa subfamily within the Great Niger-Congo Nigritic family. But Yoruba and Ajayi are more closely related languages, one with another, than they are with Edo or Igbo. It appears clear from contemporary travels reports that at the opening of the period under discussion, the lingua franca of the Ajayi country was Lukumi, which is undoubtedly the Yoruba language. Weird that it's called it. That has to be the influence of somebody probably under the impression of Greenberg. That's a whole nother argument. Now, the close affinity between Yoruba and Ajayi is most obvious in their religious beliefs. The Dahomians, for example, accept their gods originated from Ife and beliefs shared by all Yoruba kingdoms. In the 18th century, the highest Dahomian god was the Lisa and the male counterpart of Mwa. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that, but I will tell you here in this perspective of history of West Africa, they're just linking the two and not giving you an actual narrative of where they come from outside of the oral tradition perspective written by Brother Ajayi, who makes another argument. Now, here's what is said about that. Those who left during the primary migration are variously said to be 7 or 16 groups. It will probably never be possible to know exactly how many, judging from number of kingdoms whose rulers now claim direct descent from Oduduwa in order to validate their status. It would appear, however, that it was during the period that Orion became the ruler of Benin and later founded Oyo. The kingdoms of Owu, Kitu, Elisha, Ila, and Okoi, later Ijibu, as well as some of the Akite kingdoms, may also have been founded at this time. Other kingdoms were later founded by migrants from these kingdoms. These are kingdoms of secondary migration. Again, how many there were cannot be traced. Among them might be Akur, Osogbo, Old Ikoyi, because these are fairly ancient foundations. Some of them also claim direct descent from Ife. Such claims make any attempt to distinguish between the kingdoms of the primary and secondary migrations still more difficult. All right, moving right along. All right, here we go. Now, no sizable states had emerged in the area between the mouth of the Volta River and Yoruba land by the middle of the 15th century. But in the western and midwestern regions of Nigeria, the Portuguese found the Yoruba and Edo people living in what we were probably the most advanced and certainly the most interesting states of the Guinea coast, Ife, Benin, and Oyo. The oldest of these is Ife. Indeed, the Yoruba-speaking people regard Ife as the center of the world and the cradle of their civilization. According to one of their traditional accounts, it is there that God's children landed and set about to create the world. The most senior of these children was Adudawa, whom they regarded as the first ruler of Oni of Ife. He is said to have had 16 children, whom he set out to found the Yoruba states. From a careful analysis of these oral traditions and the terracotta art of Ife, Willett has concluded that these oral traditions represent the arrival of a small but influential group of people, probably from the east or northeast. He postulates further that these people found the indigenous Yoruba and Igbo peoples already working in terracotta and that they introduced art and bronze casting and the ideas of divine kingship, and that these new arrivals founded Ife, from which place and the Yoruba kingdoms would be created, whether founded by Yoruba or by invaders from the east. If Ife never developed into a kingdom for reasons that are still not apparent, it remained throughout essentially a city-state ruled by a divine king who, as Portuguese observers put it, was held in great reverence, basically reverence, as in the supreme pontiff with us. Nevertheless, Ife is a vital interest because it has remained from its foundation their religious center of all the Yoruba people, and because it was there that Yoruba's world-acclaimed sculpture in bronze, wood, and terracotta was first developed. From there, this unique art spread to the whole of West Africa. The bronze sculptures, their supreme achievement, were made by the lost wax process. The best of these were created in classical period of Ife art, which conventionally has been said to have lasted from the beginning of the 13th to the middle of the 14th century. However, in view of the bronze sculptures recently discovered at Igbo Ukwu, which have been dated by the radiocarbon process to the 19th AD, many scholars are beginning to accept an earlier date for Ife classical period, probably before our millennium, bringing it closer to the Note culture. So Boahen, which is an African scholar, is under the impression that also based on recent information that he said north or to the east was his speculation. So you hear a lot of that. You only heard one or two people mention, one person in particular mentioned claims of Arabia. Arabia was only mentioned because you have Islamic influence in Yoruba land, and the people who are heavily influenced by that are always going to say Arabia because of Allah. All right. So let's get into the Holy Odu, and let's deal with some oral tradition. First, I want to make a point, and I want to make basically a religious point when I read this right here, because a lot of people always say that always constitute African traditions and customs as a religion. Well, the Yoruba don't see their system of belief as a religion per se. Rather, they see their religious system as practically philosophy. To them, religious practice is not separate from culture, but is embedded in the culture and daily life. They have no generic concept of religion as a discrete field of human activity. Now, to make the argument, Frisfold states in 2006, actually, Yoruba religion seems to be a religion in the same sense as Hinduism is a religion, meaning that religion is not a very good term as it fixes what is naturally volatile in a way hardly confines the dynamic immutability of the beliefs itself. Hinduism is rightfully called Sanatana Dharma as a reference to the older cosmos, and the actions of man has to do with their accordance with his or her Dharma. It designates a system where man is a part of bigger order, where the whole cosmos and creations are interrelated. Even having its rites and ways of worship is not an institution as of one find in the case of monotheistic religions. This is evident considering the many cults of all over India based upon a minor deity important for a given village. The Yoruba word for religion is Esin. This word means to serve, and this term is used only when referring to Muslims or Christians. The Yorubas, on the other hand, tend to denote an identity one's religion by referring to a cult belonging, like by using the term designated one's religious belongingness. Elisu, a devotee of Orisha, is Su and accordingly a member of his cult. The Yoruba is not using Esin to denote their own religion. Rather they use Asi Ibili or Oro, which means customs of the country, or simply customs. The oral customs of the white man was Christianity, but the oral of the natives were a Insi Oro Ele Tabi Babawa, meaning we are performing the established customs of our land and our ancestors. Yoruba is one of three major and second most populous ethnic groups in Nigeria. The people occupy the southwestern part of the country, stretching from the upperland area to the hinterland of the lagoon. They speak Yoruba language. The people are traditionally farmers, most of whom are now engaging in some white-collar jobs and trading activities. Like other African societies, the people were predominantly traditional worshipers who worship various gods and deities. They have the worldview of the supreme being known as Olorun or Olodumare, as descendants of a common ancestor, Oduduwa. They share a common worldview. Like many other African societies, the following five categories of religious practices can be observed as early observed by Mbiti. One, and I'm gonna use this word, but I really don't, when relating it to African traditions and customs, I don't like the word really to be there. But God as the ultimate explanation of Genesis and substance of man of all things. Spirits made up of superhuman beings and spirits of ancestors. Man including human beings alive and those not yet born. Animals and plants or the reminders of biological life, and phenomena and objects without biological life. Now, in addition to the five categories, there's a vital force, a power of energy permeating the whole universe. Ashe. For the Yorubas, every plant, animal, inanimate object, and natural phenomenon is a carrier of divine consciousness. God is the source of ultimate control of the vital force, but the deities are the intermediaries between man and God. Yoruba believe all individual manifestations of consciousness can communicate. These extensionist concept that we are connected to God, each other, and all conscious beings in common to many religions, and is the basis of much of the practical aspects of religion. It is through communication, through extensionism, that we pray for the help of our deities. In addition, we can build up and strengthen our individual level of our shade power to make things happen through communication. It's believed that this communication benefits both parties. Now, let me get on into this view. Uh-oh. What's up, y'all? Oh, man. All right. Let me try to get into this real quick. So, here's Yoruba's view of the cosmos as a dynamic interplay of such opposites of heaven and earth, day and night, masculine and feminine, physical and metaphysical, body and soul, inner and outer, hot and cold, hard and soft, left and right, life and death, success and failure, and so on. However, the Yoruba say that the great mystery of Olorun of God is unity. It is when Oru, the Ashe of God, passes into the physical realms and becomes Ila, formless as ready to manifest, that polarities are created. It is in balancing these forces that harmony at the universal, societal, individual level is achieved. Why is it we have polarities in universe that make it hard to achieve harmony on Earth? Now it gets into particular Odus, and you'll actually see me probably post some of these or others, but I'm not going to get into the actual Odus. I will give you a little bit more about them, but I do want to get into how they actually come into being as the story goes. Well, actually, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just going to tell you, I've already said this story once, a short version of this story once, and two different styles, and that's how they say it, basically coming from Oduduwa. So based on the information that we actually have available for us regarding the Yoruba. And let me make sure I cleared all my sources because I could go further and further and further. But according to the Yoruba, the Yoruba do believe they descend from a distant place east or northeast in this instance. Evidence argues that, a little bit different than that. Um, some people argue that the so-called Hermetic hypothesis is the reason why the Yoruba believe that they come from somewhere along the Nile. And then some evidence refers to some type of communication with them already being in West Africa, but establishing some type of relationship or trade, because you will see these beads that you see along West Africa, these glass beads along West Africa, you will see them also somewhere along the Nile, as if there was some type of relationship that was going on between them. More evidence needs to be brought out to actually substantiate the claim of a link between the ancient Remech and the Yoruba people, because the Yoruba are not the only people in West Africa that tend to assume that they come, or think or say in their traditions that they come from the Nile. And that also helps formulate the Hermetic hypothesis. But it also puts West Africa in the light as people not wanting to claim or clinging to their particular heritage. Not saying this is the case. Not saying this is the case at all. However, I basically wanted to lay out that conversation for y'all regarding the Yoruba people. A lot of us have sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, somebody that may be practicing the traditions. If not directly the Isheshe, which I posted a video about the traditional practices and on the continent. Many people seem to go to Lukumi, or they call it Regla de Ocha, which is pretty much an offspring, something that was created in the New World, which is supposed, which is the deities are held up under Catholicism and named different names that I don't know how African deities get. I do know, but I don't understand why they are still hiding African deities' names under Catholicism today. I understood it when it was coming from the continent to the New World, and then they did not want the missionaries and the enslavers to think that they were practicing, ancient African culture and traditions. So they would, you know, reposition it as such. So today, I don't think that there's no need. There's other scholars, or there are other people who would also argue that point, like, why are we hiding our African deities under the names of Catholicism? You know, and I have this position that I actually take from a historical perspective, as in, why not practice the traditional practices of our ancestors? Why are we clinging to the Lukumi or Regla de Ocha, this influential presence that's highly commercialized? I call it commercialized now, because you see our brothers and sisters that's in those traditions wearing like all the Ile-Ife beads. And then when you get to the continent, you may not see that. Now, these are things that brother Black Panther has also has talked about some things regarding the differences in the practices, and trying to share some common good out of that. His position, and we've talked about this plenty of times, his position is, hey, look, it is introducing our people to, our African perspective and things of that nature. But in my heart of hearts, I'm always like, man, if I'm in this, why not be in this for the real thing? So I'm a big fan of Isheshe. I posted the video down my timeline recently today regarding how to get involved in the traditional practices of Isheshe. and it's a good conversation between Brother Panther and his Baba, and they kind of deal with that from that perspective. Now, more will come out of this. Like I said, this was just a discussion. This wasn't nothing to actually elaborate on anything further. I don't know. I might be intrigued to write an article or something like that. Or I don't know where it will go, but I do have enough information with more information on the way to actually argue a little bit from a scholastic perspective about this. But I kind of want to stay right there on the surface as far as a conversation. If you're interested in joining the conversation, please comment in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, which I haven't checked, or Facebook. If you take a different position and want to get into that, then you can get into that. And I can see right now my brother Sutek is in there throwing blows and on the Mossi Warrior Clan YouTube chat. He's saying that it's a watered down version, and I actually feel how he feel, but I can't stand up and say that because I would be, actually I'm gonna say it. Yeah, it's watered down. Forget that. I just take the repercussions of it. Don't let my views and my opinions and my position reflect that of Black Panther. He takes a more modest approach with his brothers and sisters that are into the traditions of Regla de Ocha. Now, the reason that he actually does that is because, he's an Igungun priest. He's entrenched in that. He knows that they're not really into the Sheshe things, and he knows and can break down all the differences a lot faster and better than I can, even though we talk and build about these things from a historical perspective all the time. I'm just not going to jump into that right there because I'm not the authority on that. But, just from a historical perspective, I can elaborate on it a little bit. And I do know that these Cuban people, I don't want to say that. I'm gonna hold on to that. I'm just gonna say this, that some of those people, they want their traditions to be their traditions. They don't want them to be affiliated with Africa. Now, you might not think that. You might not feel that. You might not know that. But there is a source that exists. There is a source that exists with these people stating their case of having their traditions, notice their traditions, to be that of its own and not linked to the mother and father of its inception. And then you have the Oni of Ife show up, and then he gets all kind of praises, and then they show respect to the Oni and the traditions when they come to Cuba and so on and so forth. So hey, I don't know what's going on with that. I do know that based on the information that I have reviewed and seen for myself and read for myself, there's a disconnect. There's a want to disconnect, I should say, to depart from Africa and it be its own tradition. So Regla da Ocha being something of its own, or you may say Lukumi. So, shout out to all the rappers out there who are part of Regla de Ocha and trying to reacclimate themselves into the traditions of the Yoruba in this instance. And, you just trying to give people their traditions back or introduce them to it. However you're trying to do it is cool. I just wish that more of our brothers and sisters took the route of the of Isheshe and got into the entrenched traditions and learn some of those things. Now, I'm not the person to come to for that. I seek spiritual guidance in that area from my brother Black Panther. Like again, he is entrenched in the traditions and the customs. Him and his wife, they're very big on teaching people these things, but they only, if you're serious, they will rock with you and point you in a direction. So do not contact my brother or my sister for any information regarding Isheshe. I gave you a video. You can view the video probably 2 or 3 posts down from this. and you can comment on that video. If he sees it and responds to it, cool. Or you can comment in this comment section, and I will try to get you pointed in the right direction and get you some help so you can get entrenched in Isheshe versus regular Deocha. Not saying to separate or cause some type of division or anything like that, but the actual indigenous traditions of our ancestors. Because like earlier, Ross said something about his ancestry, and he wanted to really know the answer to that question. And a lot of African Americans here on the continent, we come from Nigeria as well as other parts of West Africa, and you may have that lineage, and you're trying to restore that lineage, and you can find some things out for yourself. But why not? You know what I mean? No, there's no need to read. Well, Kofi may argue a little bit differently with me about this, about reinventing wheels and creating your own systems and things of that nature. I just don't feel the actual need to do that. If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do the indigenous way, and I'm gonna go forward with that. But man, thank everybody for tuning in. Yep, Ben is Ben's father's, Ben's Senegal, from Senegal. And yeah, Siri is correct. Sutek. Yep, he's Siri. Panther is Siri. All day long. Hold on one second. I'm reading some questions, so if I a little pause, I'm doing that. At Mossi Warrior Clan, we were forced to hide our true culture because whites made E5 leak. Yeah, I kind of okay. You just catching up to what I was saying. So yeah, the true culture was hid because of that, but it's still hid, and there's no reason to hide the true culture from anyone, right? I mean, think about African Americans never really heard of black gods. Let's think about that until not recently in history. They haven't. They didn't know that, you don't see yourself going up. Like, for instance, let me go back to this screen right here. Imagine walking down the street. You walking down the street and you're seeing black deities in places. You're seeing statues of black people everywhere. That's not the African American experience. That's not our experience, right? Or the diasporian African. That's not their experience. Their experience is Jesus Christ. If it ain't Jesus, it's Allah. That's the experience, right? From I hate to use the word spiritual perspective, but that's not our experience. If everybody closed their eyes right now, you're not gonna see a black God when you close your eyes. You're gonna see white Jesus. Because we've been indoctrinated to see that. And I'm not slandering or taking shots or throwing shade or nothing like that, but I'm just saying, think about if you're entrenched in the tradition and customs of your people, and you start to see yourself as a deity. Not so much so as a deity as far as a worship perspective, anything like that, but you know what I mean? When you think of the Neteru in ancient Kemet, or the Orishas in the Yoruba traditions, and all the other traditions and customs on the continent, you see them and they look like you. Like what we did years ago is we had a wave of people painting Jesus black. You feel me? And I don't think that was psychologically, that was not the correct approach to actually take, because even if you did paint Jesus black, when you close your eyes, he still don't look black. You can say, yeah, he do. You can try to make him, but the reality of it is that that's not the actual case. And that's just the truth. So our experience has not been that of which we would see ourselves in these places and things of that nature, right? So I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic, a very interesting conversation. Is one that requires more research and attention paid to. Like I said, I threw out 7 sources. I probably left one out. Yeah, I think I left one out on purpose. but I got another source for a reason. I didn't want to go too far in it and all these books I get. But I have a lot of information and evidence to actually argue my point in an article or a book. When you put pen to paper, that's when you stand on what you stand on, for real. So I like to thank everybody for tuning in. That's the end of this particular conversation, man. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. I appreciate everybody that actually tuned in. In the description of this particular video, I have links to all of the books that we have as a team, whether it be the Mossi Warrior Clan or the Kofi Pasai Research Team. Please support Spears of the Mossi Volume 1 and From Spears to Pen Volume 2 from the Kofi Pasai Research Team. The Conscious Community First Pan-African Journal, which is Killmonger's Corner by Brother Black Panther. Also, One Night Before Bed, a children's book written by me. And Kofi Pasai's children's book, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland. They all can be found in the description. There's links for that at KofiPasaiTV.com, learning in / learning center, and you can get those books, or you can also purchase via Amazon. But we prefer for you to purchase them directly through us, which is better for us. And even if you do get it from Amazon, that's cool too, but if you buy a book from me, I'm gonna sign it and send it. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm gonna make one more round of see if there's any more questions left. Peace to all the people that watch the watch party. I see y'all waving and speaking. I think Sutek took care of everything on the YouTube side. Yeah, man, support us, man. We not like these big YouTube channels where we got 50,000 people subscribed and get 2,000 viewers and things of that nature. We ain't like that because we don't entertain. We come to educate. You know what I mean? And I know there's some people like, hey, y'all need to have some fun to do this, that, and the third. But our people are so lost in their way, and they don't really know what's going on around them because they're being too entertained that they can't keep up. So we get the whole jack move version of what's going on in the world, and then we're trying to out here combat a lot of misinformation, and then we get caught up in being misinformed that we can't, we're not smart enough to overcome that. So we try to take a different approach, the best approach that we can as a research team to get this information to our people. We do like the laugh, joke, play, and things of that nature, but we just don't cuss people out and argue with people all the time. We would rather argue scholastically and disseminate that information and make sure that our people get the correct information at all time versus, just a cuss and match between two people yelling and shouting. I really can't learn during chaos. And they say order precedes chaos. So we are order, and we're trying to restore order among our brothers and sisters out there. So on that note, I'm going to say Shemim Hotep, which means depart in peace. Look for a major announcement this Friday from Kofi Pasai and myself. And peace out to all the Mboka, which is family out there, man, and support our works. I mean, we take time away from our families and our friends to make sure that we educate and teach our people and provide y'all with answers and solutions. So I'm going to say peace out, and y'all take care. And until next time, that's how we rocking out.